I don't know. I feel like Justyn Ross is the most hyped up undrafted free agent maybe in NFL history. I don't know if we should go that deep, but specifically in Chiefs history, I haven't seen Chiefs Kingdom this excited about an undrafted free agent. So today, we're going to discuss and see if the hype should be legit going into 2023. But before we do get into all of that, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, as I'm going to keep you up to date on anything Kansas City Chiefs related that you do not want to miss out on. And without further ado, let's have some fun. Now, before we get into this video and jump onto this hype train with Justyn Ross and find out if it should be legit going into 2023, the Kansas City Chiefs wrapped up week 2 of OTAs, and let's talk about some players who were standout players in this OTAs this week. And the first one is no other than Clyde EdwardsHelaire. Someone who's going to go into 2023 with the biggest chip on his shoulder, and someone who has kind of Chiefs Kingdom against him because he hasn't lived up to his draft status and hasn't lived up to the overall value of that pick. Now, at the end of the day, I'm excited to see what Clyde EdwardsHelaire can bring to the Kansas City Chiefs moving into next season. And I love what we've heard from the coaches and what has been said going into this OTAs, where they said he looks like a new guy, a different guy, someone who is motivated to go into next year. And new running back coach Todd Pixton, yes, former wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles, who was under Coach Reed, had raving reviews about Clyde EdwardsHelaire and is excited to see how he progresses going into training camp and into the preseason. One key motivation he gave Clyde EdwardsHelaire is basically hit the restart button. Whatever has happened in the past, that's the past. Let it be. It is a new season. Show them that it's a new you and bring your best foot forward. And honestly, that's really good advice. And I love to hear it, and I love to see the effort that Clyde EdwardsHelaire is because, one, Todd Pixton, this is the highest elevated coaching position he has had in the NFL, so you know he's here to prove himself too. And a lot of us were curious at the end of the day because a wide receiver coaching running backs, even though it has been done, you tend to think, you're like, well, why isn't he the wide receiver coach? But hey, Coach Reed, he knows where to put coaches and where to fill it in and to make sense. And the fact that he's saying those kind of things, and a guy who has been a veteran in this league, to motivate someone like Clyde EdwardsHelaire who has had slumps is huge. And also, you see little clips of Clyde EdwardsHelaire as well. And we know he's got that bubbly, fun personality, and you can see it's still going on. I think Clyde EdwardsHelaire, I'm not going to say is going to be a breakout player, go for over 1,000 yards, because this running back room is deep as can be. But also, I think Clyde EdwardsHelaire can be more productive than what any of us have ever expected because, one, he's not going to be working with the full workload because now you got Isaiah Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon. I think it's going to be a very, very good rotation. And as I mentioned in previous videos as well, Clyde EdwardsHelaire, before he got hurt last year, was lethal in the red zone. And when the Kansas City Chiefs lost Clyde EdwardsHelaire and McCole Hardman, they stumbled. They struggled in the red zone, and they had to find new ways to succeed. If Clyde EdwardsHelaire can bring just that little production in the red zone, he is immense with great value headed into 2023. So Chiefs Kingdom, I know you want to see him move his way out, but he can be a key factor to try to get the Chiefs to repeat as Super Bowl champions. Now, we're still going to focus on star players in this OTAs, and we're still going to focus on the offense because it seems like that's what it has been all about. We have got key highlights from guys like Justin Watson, Sky Moore, and the guy we're going to focus on today is Justyn Ross. The receiving core, we know, it's deep. It's got so much potential. It's going to be so fun to watch. That's why I am dialed into this training camp and preseason, because these camp battles are going to be tougher than ever. Not just in the wide receiver room, but all around. Because I think this is the deepest this Kansas City Chiefs roster has ever been. And there's going to be so many difficult cuts that will happen. But when you see guys like Justyn Ross, Justyn Watson, yeah, I said that right. I was jumbling names. Yes, Justyn Ross, Justin Watson, Sky Moore, and then Kadarius Toney hasn't been at OTAs yesterday, but just to see the production that can be, you just gotta love it going into 2023. And of course, I want to mention some guys on the defense because it doesn't seem like that's been highlighted a lot lately, but let's focus in on a few players. And the first one I want to talk about a little bit, even though we haven't got highlights or anything newsworthy out of him, is Justyn Reed. And this is going to date back to last week where he is looking bigger than ever. He is looking leaner than ever. And he is looking like he is ready to take on the role of being a leader on the secondary and going in and being a force. And you love it. Honestly, when we got Justyn Reed from the Houston Texans, the main thing we saw out of him is he's a thumper. He is basically a linebacker playing the safety position. And you saw it started to translate later in the year, and you could see he was molding into his own player as the Kansas City Chiefs. But to start the year, it was a little up and down. And that's what happens in the Steve Spagnuolo defense, or even in the Andy Reid offense. You can see the hiccups from here and there, but when you get into November and that December type of football, this team is clicking. So to see Justyn Reed looking in the best shape of his life, it's exciting to see. And I'm excited to see what role he is ready to take on going into next year. Now, the last two guys I want to focus on are our rookie draft picks. And Steve Spagnuolo and Dave Toub had raving reviews on Nick Jones and Shamari Connors. Dave Toub mentioned that they are going to be immediate starters on the special teams. And that should come no surprise to anybody because that's where these later round draft picks tend to find their way on the team, specifically with Nick Jones. But Shamari Connors, I'm zoned in on you a lot because I believe he could be a key contributor. Maybe not early in the season, but when you see that November, December football coming in, you're going to see Shamari Connors either at safety or either at cornerback making a play for the Kansas City Chiefs. Something about Brett Veach, Steve Spagnuolo, they know how to find these diamond in the rough guys from the 4th to the 7th round. And honestly, even Nick Jones too. One thing he was really good at in college is he knows and has a knack for finding the football. He had a lot of pass breakups, and he just knows how to make a play on the football and get an interception. He had it in the first week of OTAs as well, where he had an amazing interception. This rookie class may not have the highest ceiling as last year's, but they bring more depth and they can produce as well. And it's something we should all be dialed in going into next year. Now, let's focus on the man of the hour, or shoot, the man of the year, man of the month, man of the mini camp, man of the training camp, man of the preseason, who Chiefs Kingdom have their eyes all dialed in, and probably the biggest hype train we have seen in a long time, and it is no other than Justyn Ross. And we're just gonna wrap our heads around this. We're gonna see, is this hype supposed to be this big and this legit? And the first thing I want to say is I am on this hype train. I may not be as crazy as most Chiefs Kingdom where they think he's going to be the future wide receiver #1. He's going to be breaking all of the Chiefs legend records and hold every wide receiver record. I'm pausing there. I really am. Because at the end of the day, you got to give his value for what it's worth. And you also got to look at the player in whole, which is what we're going to do right here. But also, I can see why Chiefs Kingdom is in love with this wide receiver. One, because this can be, even though undrafted, one of the biggest steals to have a guy who was a potential first-round pick, which I'm going to put an asterisk on because we're going to talk about that as well, going to be undrafted and then signing with the Kansas City Chiefs. That has huge upside, and there is talent there as well. And also, the thing that has Chiefs Kingdom in awe and basically gushing over Justyn Ross is because Patrick Mahomes, the Kansas City Chiefs haven't had a receiver of Justyn Ross's stature, basically 6'4", over 200 pounds. They haven't had anyone that lengthy. But here's why I'm going to put a little pause, because I've watched a lot of his highlights. I watched a lot of his tape. And yes, from his freshman year and even in his sophomore year, you could see he is a really, really good player. Actually, his freshman year, he was on his way to becoming one of the best college receivers. He had over 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns. And then sophomore year, a little less yardage, 8 touchdowns. And then when you went to that junior year is when those injuries started to pile up. And then he had a redshirt junior year, basically showing he still can play and that he's still recovering from injury. And then it takes place. And then that's where the draft status starts falling because of all the injuries that took place. But also, where I'm taking a little bit of pause. And I don't know if this has to do with injuries or if it was prior to the injuries, but I'm looking at his athletic traits and how he just tested and how he scored. Besides the size of Justyn Ross and besides the length and all that, he really didn't test that great whatsoever. He's not the fastest guy. I think the thing that's going to make him win in this league, and he really needs to show he is better than everyone else, is does he have separation skills? Because a receiver his stature, and he's not really the heftiest guy. Yes, he's over 200 pounds, but when you're 6'4", I think when you're 6'4", you expect a guy to be around 220. He's around 205, and he's running a 4.63. That's not that fast whatsoever. I would have felt more comfortable for Justyn Ross to run maybe a 4.5. That would be perfect. But also, what caught all of our eyes and what basically had us all zoned in and why the Justyn Ross hype train is taking a new level is because the highlight that the Kansas City Chiefs media released. And of course, they know what they're doing. They know what Chiefs Kingdom is zoned in and dialed in about. And the thing that caught our eyes was he actually got away from a DB, and the DB is drawing a blank. But it was basically a straight go route, and he outran the guy. It didn't look like no 4.6 speed. I will give it that. And that's what you want to see. And if he is a legit 4.6 guy, and there was even reports on a pro day that he ran a 4.87, which is going to struggle at the next level if that's the case. I'm not saying slow receivers can't be good at the next level, because that is not the case. The greatest receiver of all time, Jerry Rice, isn't the fastest guy by any stretch of the imagination. In Chiefs Kingdom, pause. I am not putting Justyn Ross in the same scenario or same sentence as Jerry Rice. I'm just comparing the speed. That is all. But at the end of the day, one thing you need to excel in is your route running and your separation. And I think that's something he's got to enhance and take to the next level, specifically in this offseason. And when you have guys like Coach Reed, Coach Embre, who is the new wide receiver coach for the Kansas City Chiefs, and then you got Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and now you have the whole NFL media. That was the thing that caught me by surprise. I understand the Kansas City Chiefs media sending out the video, but you had Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, the NFL team retweeting this video and showing Justyn Ross on a full limelight. I was like, where is this hype train going? This is crazy. And I want people to be cautious. That's all. Like, I don't want things to get too high. I want it to become level-headed, because at the end of the day, and it's going to sound like a jab, but I mentioned the speed. I mentioned on all the drills, it wasn't really tested that great. Again, I don't know if that has anything to do with injury, but he was, and I didn't look into Richie James Jr. or Justin Watson, but looking at guys like Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, Rashee Rice, MVS, everyone is athletically tested better than Justyn Ross. Now, that doesn't mean much, because when it's game day and the lights are on, things can change. But also, there are more physically, athletically gifted wide receivers on this team. That may not sound good, and Chiefs Kingdom may come after me because it sounds like I'm taking a shot at our guy. I'm just saying, level the expectations. Justyn Ross can make this team. He can even be productive this next year. But when I mean productive, I'm limiting it to like 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Honestly, that would be a phenomenal year for me. Those stats may not seem like anything staggering, but at the end of the day, if Justyn Ross makes this team, which Chiefs Kingdom is already claiming he will, you can't just expect him to come in and like, oh, he's going to be an automatic 500 to 1,000 yard receiver. It just doesn't work like that. We've seen this in this offense. Kadarius Toney took some time. Sky Moore took some time. Juju didn't even click right away as well either. It takes one full year. And honestly, yes, he was on this roster last year. And what Patrick Mahomes and Coach Reed said with Justyn Ross is he was in the playbook, which is great. It's what you need to do. But when you get on the field, that's when the speed starts to change a little bit. Now, that's why I'm going to be zoned in on Justyn Ross heavily this preseason. And that's where I'm going to be either on this hype train fully or off. Because if it's not translating to the field, it's going to be like, okay, is this really legit hype, or do we have to give it time? I'm not doubting him by any stretch of the imagination, but you got to look at what this Kansas City Chiefs roster look like. You got to look at what this wide receiver core looks like. This is the deepest wide receiver core in the league. I really believe it. They may not have a legit top 5, top 10 wide receiver, but they got the depth behind it, where if one guy goes out, you feel comfortable about the next guy coming in. And also, I think if you look at guys like, I just want to zone in on Richie James Jr. for a little bit, because there's a lot of Chiefs Kingdom saying they don't see Richie James Jr. making this roster. And that can be a strong possibility. I'm not going to doubt that either. But look what Richie James Jr. is, and let's not doubt him either, because what he did last year with a struggling New York Giants offense, even though they made the playoffs, that whole wide receiver core was struggling. He still put up over 6 touchdowns. 6 touchdowns and 600 yards. He was a threat in that offense. Richie James Jr. And he provides a point on special teams. I think the true camp battle is going to be Justyn Watson and Richie James Jr. But also, you got to listen to what Brett Veach says. And that's what I always mention is listen to what the Kansas City Chiefs are telling you. It doesn't matter what I feel or what Chiefs Kingdom feels. Brett Veach was heavily zoned in on Richie James Jr. dating back to the San Francisco 49ers, where they tried to trade for him. Do you really think it's just going to be one offseason and, oh, he's off the team, we don't need him? No, they really value Richie James Jr. and they're going to find a role for him on this team. Now, of course, it depends, because it can be, okay, things aren't working out here. Maybe they're not working out on special teams. Maybe he's just not a fit as a Kansas City Chief. But Chiefs Kingdom, who are we in the right mind to say, oh, he's not going to make the team? We haven't even seen nothing from him. So give the dude a chance. And also, I think we need to also follow what happened last year with the Ronald Jones situation. Ronald Jones, literally, we slated him as RB1 ahead of Isaiah Pacheco, because we didn't know what Isaiah Pacheco would become, ahead of CEH, and ahead of Jerick McKinnon. And then when it got to the cut down days, we're like, oh, he's going to get cut. He's not going to make the team. And then he stayed on the team the entire year. Now, he didn't produce until December, and it was barely even that because he was never on the active roster. But the Kansas City Chiefs just never throw a player aside. They make sure that they keep a player that they want on the roster and find a way to keep him on this team. Coach Reid has always been that coach where he finds value in every single player. So I'm not counting out Richie James. Honestly, I think he can be really productive on this team. Honestly, it's hard to zone in on who wouldn't make this roster with this wide receiver core. But going back to Justyn Ross, let's just level it out a little bit. He can be good in this league. But am I going to say he's going to be a top 5 wide receiver, a top 10 wide receiver? No. And also, I want to go back to why I put an asterisk as probably our first round pick if nothing to do with injuries. I remember dating back to the draft and that year, a lot of Chiefs Kingdom and a lot of NFL media, even though we tried to avoid the injuries and not zone in on him as well, they were focusing on him as just a 4th round pick. And it was basically because of how he tested. And now we're just saying because he was an undrafted guy, which could be a steal, that, oh, he can be one of the great wide receivers. You got to give and take here. Just because he's undrafted or a 4th round or a 1st round receiver, he is still the same player. Now, it does matter what system he goes into. And he is with the Kansas City Chiefs. It's just, I don't see Coach Reid being week 1 against the Detroit Lions. Let's just have him out there and ball out. No, they're going to test out guys like Kadarius Toney, who has been highly mentioned as wide receiver number 1 and who the Kansas City Chiefs want to focus on heavily. And then Sky Moore, who they have also mentioned they feel is going to take leaps and bounds next year to be a really good receiver. And then you got guys like MVS. And also, it's like we forget about the guy we drafted in the 2nd round and Richie Rice. Now, I know we temper away from that a lot because we saw what Sky Moore did his rookie year. But Richie Rice is another guy who tested off the charts. And I feel like he's going to have a better rookie year than Sky Moore. I may be crazy, and it is not saying a lot. But at the end of the day, hey, this wide receiver room is crazy, and it's going to be hard to make the roster, whether it's Justyn Ross or whether it's the last guy on the practice squad trying to fight for that, or even John Ross. That's how deep this is. You can literally pick and choose each name, and you can literally make sense on why any wide receiver would make this team and can be productive. But with that, Chiefs Kingdom, I'm going to close off this video. I'm going to stay on the hype train, but I'm not going to be driving it. You let me know how you feel about this Justyn Ross hype, and you know what? Just dive in the comments down below. You guys know he's going to make the team, so let's not even discuss that. What are you predicting Justyn Ross to do next year? Stat lines, what he can do. With that, I'm going to close out. Y'all take care. Please be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you did like this video, please click that big thumbs up. Y'all take care. Peace.